I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share my story here on the Gulf Coast. It's kind of become a home away from home for me. Living with MS can feel like a heavy weight on our shoulders. But it's much easier to bear with the support of our community, our loved ones, and our friends. My dad was a truck driver, and my mom worked at a local furniture store. I was a daddy's girl, and at age 16, I drove my father to the doctor for a routine checkup. And the news we got that day forever changed my life. The doctor informed us that my dad only had 6 months to live, and they put him on a transplant list and an experimental drug, and we prayed that it would help cure this disease. You see, it was during the worst days of my father's illness that I began to find comfort in writing. I found it to be the only place that I felt safe. It was a way for me to heal, to vent, and to begin to understand what I was going through. I discovered that once I wrote it down, somehow the feelings were tangible. I could read them, I could see them on paper, and I could sing them out loud. And a little over 6 years ago, I walked down a sandy beach aisle in Seaside, Florida, and married my husband, Eric. A year and a half later, I came face to face with MS. To describe the feeling that I had when I first was diagnosed with my illness, I have to compare it to a childhood fear of mine. I was deathly afraid of water. When I was a child, I used to be a terrible swimmer. My mom would put floaties on me when I was 12 and make me go to swim parties. But I really, seriously, it's probably her fault because she was afraid of water too. But I was always afraid of the deep end, and it was dark and uncertain, and I definitely felt this intense feeling of fear. So I always stayed on the shallow end of the pool because that's where I knew where the bottom was, right? I knew how high the water would be, and I felt safe, and sometimes we don't have a choice. Life can throw us in the deep end without warning. And it's up to us to be ready for it. It's up to us to swim. To me, being faced with MS was like being thrown in the deep end. My grandmother had battled cancer throughout my childhood, and my dad had a lot of courage with his illness, and it taught me so much, but nothing could prepare me for the emotional, physical, and financial roller coaster that comes with this illness. I can only be glad that God has placed angels in my life when He did to help me through it. My wonderful husband always believed in me and my dream to become a professional songwriter, so he encouraged and nudged me until eventually we packed up a U-Haul from Phoenix, Arizona and moved all the way to Nashville, Tennessee. I started writing, meeting publishers, and my career started building momentum. I knew something big was going to happen, but I wasn't sure what it was, and eventually it did. I drove down to Orange Beach, Alabama. I know you guys know where that is. I went down there, and there was a listening room there, and they wanted me to become a resident artist for them. And then they said to me, "We want to sponsor you." I was like, "I don't know what you mean by that, but I'll take it." So what they meant by that was that they wanted me to record at one of the top studios in Music City. Now this was a dream come true. I got to record with A-list session players and Grammy Award winners, and we set those dates, and I waited anxiously. I was on the edge of my seat. And life pretty much went on as usual. I was still anxious about getting to do that, but one day I woke up and the vision in my right eye began to go dim. And to describe it, I would have to say it's like turning your computer screen light down to almost black. I had been doing hours of computer work, so I assumed that my eyes were tired, and I went home early that day and rested. But when I woke up the next day, my vision was worse. Only this time, the pain was really sharp, and shooting jolts of what felt like electricity traveled behind my eye down through my cheek. It was unbearable. I'm not sure if it was from the pain or dizziness, but I blacked out, and my coworker then drove me to the nearest eye doctor for an emergency visit. You guys made it through all of this, and the doctors I had were amazing. They were thorough. They tested me for West Nile, lupus, meningitis, a long list of other diseases I can't spell or pronounce. I had a team of 6 doctors. They visited me daily, and my vision gradually returned to almost normal. I was told at that point that I have optic neuritis, and there was some discussion about MS, but at that point they didn't give me a for sure, diagnosis, and they sent me home. But there's good news to all this. I was released just in time to go to Nashville and record that single. Yeah, I had the opportunity to record in the studio where Miranda Lambert and Carrie Underwood recorded their records, and I cried when I heard my song coming over those loudspeakers in that studio. Attitudes are contagious, and somehow my dad's strength had taught me to be a fighter. And at that point, I was not giving up. I was going to record that record, and I wasn't going to let a little sickness get in my way. I spent 8 days in the hospital this time. I went through all the same tests again, but this time they called it multiple sclerosis. I realized that the dizziness I felt when I would get hot, the burning in my legs, were all symptoms of this disease, and now I had a name for it. But I asked the doctor, I said, how do I get over this? He didn't have an answer. He said it's different for everyone. There's no cure, but there are treatments. There it was again, that sinking feeling. I felt like I was in the deep end. The worst part of that whole conversation was the unknown. I asked him why a disease that plagued so many people couldn't be figured out, reversed, or cured. I had finally passed the point of fear, and my feelings had turned to frustration. My husband Eric was in denial. He told me the doctors were crazy, and he just kept on stocking our fridge full of carrots. Eventually, I turned in the notice at the job I loved so much, and I returned to Nashville full-time, and I spent months falling into what most call a depression. I could barely leave my house. I was stuck in the what-ifs and uncertainty of my disease. I felt like if I just knew what to expect, then I could prepare. If I just knew what to do, then I could do it. I had put my life and dreams on hold, and my husband was patient but growing distant, and at this point I was scared I was going to lose him too. He urged me over and over again to go to the MS Center at Vandy, and it was there, you guys, that a fortunate accident happened to me. A medical secretary there helped me turn my entire outlook around. When I was checking out and scheduling my follow-up appointment that day, I just broke down crying in the front of the office at her desk, and it was just too much to take. I was seeing the effect that MS had on all these patients, and that was for the first time. That was a first for me. She looked at me and she said, "It's a scary place, isn't it, baby?" I said, "I came here to be a songwriter, but now I'm sick." She got really serious, and she firmly told me to look at her, and she grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. She looked at me with her big brown eyes and she said, "You're going to be just fine. You know how I know." She said, "I see folks in here like you every day, and I see them change." She said, "You have to stop letting this disease run your life. It's something you have. It ain't who you are, and it ain't who you're going to be. You can't stop dreaming because you've got it. Once you learn that, darling, you'll start singing again, and the next time I see you in here, you'll be smiling, and we'll be laughing about how much money you just made writing Taylor Swift a hit song." I haven't written a hit song for Taylor Swift yet. We're working on it. But I did see that secretary again, and we did smile and laugh and talk about my brand new album. And it's here. I have it outside, you guys, if you want one. So things are looking up. Pretty cool. You guys, every day I remind myself that this dream is a journey, not a race. And when life gets scary and I feel like I'm pushed into the deep end, I tell myself, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. You see, I work in a business where almost everyone is waiting for the next big thing. Sometimes the writers are so caught up in writing the next big hit that they end up writing from a place that isn't real. Sometimes writing a hit happens and sometimes it doesn't. But songs that are written from the heart can always touch someone's soul or help someone heal. So I made a promise to myself to always write from that honest place. When I find myself focusing on the future, I get distracted, and when I worry about those what-ifs of my disease, I get overwhelmed. But I remember the kind words that brought me clarity in it all. It ain't who you are, and it ain't who you're going to be. You can't stop dreaming. I've learned a long time ago not to let anybody define that success for me. My idea of success is being happy, and I finally found that. I have a supportive family, and I love writing songs and sharing them with people like you. And I've also learned that as an adult, I'm actually a pretty good swimmer. I can swim in the ocean, in a pool, and even in life when it feels like I've been thrown in the deep end. So I'm ready now, at any time, to jump in. Thank you.